First You Think is a not-for-profit ministry of the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. Support us at ucdsm.org today.
Good morning, everyone. I'm the Reverend Steve Sieck. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm honored to serve as your minister today. And all days. We're off to a great start. We do not have a script today. We do not have an order of service today. We are making it up as we go along. And I wanted to just say briefly why. We have a theology of the worth and dignity of everyone as you are. We reject the perfectionist mindset that many of us were so deeply steeped in. And what better way to live that out than to let go of all the preparation and planning, and instead to hold a magical hour together where we co-create something. Something will definitely happen in this hour. Now, I can't say that the entire hour will be fully improvised. Our pastoral care notes have been carefully written. Our spotlights are carefully written. But for the rest of it, let's think about what we want to hold together for this hour. Every week we come in with something on our minds, something on our hearts that we're wrestling with, gnawing with. And so I invite you to take a moment to think about that. What might we spend this hour talking about? Any ideas?
How to find peace in this world.
How to find peace in this world. Shall we go with that for the hour? That seems straightforward. Okay. How to find peace in this world. In this world, not a future one. Okay. And then for my own part, as I think about what I'm going to say for about 18 to 20 minutes, this is not a promise, but just like a fun little adventure. Are there any theological lenses you'd like me to try and touch on in our journey? I knew you'd say Buddhism. That was anything else?
How to defend humanism against what Christianity is going after?
Sure. Right. Well, let's also address white Christian nationalism. Okay. All right. And then I think I'll stop there. So Faith's going to be making up something, and Louise is going to be making up something. Do you have enough to go on? Yeah. How to find peace in this world. If you're struggling to find peace in this world today, let me give you a name to blame. John Calvin. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Now, in his prelude, Bruce was playing songs from Bernstein's Candide, an incredible work that I have a deep relationship with. Candide originally is a play by Voltaire, a story about a man who genuinely believes in his youth that this is the best of all possible worlds. Candide, of course, was sending up the philosopher Leibniz, who believed that God had created this as the perfect world and that all that happened, including earthquakes that wiped away tens of thousands, was all part of this being for the best and the best of all possible worlds. And Candide takes the bait, hook, line, and sinker. And what proceeds to follow in the story is heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak. And he arrives at a pivotal moment in the operetta where, having gone through hell and back, finds the person that he has oriented his entire life around loving, only to discover she is very much not that person. And he says, is it this? Is it this that I've hoped and died for and dreamed and cared for? Nothing more than this? He has what we might call an existentialist crisis. Perhaps this is not the best of all possible worlds. Perhaps after all the wars he'd seen, after all the death he had seen, after all the abuses of the humankind, maybe Leibniz is wrong, or in his case, Pangloss. And he sits with it for a minute and cries on stage while he sings beautifully. And then he says, depending on the Candide, and then he says, we do the best we know. We're neither pure nor wise nor good. We're just doing the best we know. We build our house, we chop our wood, and we make our garden grow. A true humanist response to an existential crisis. What do we do with the suffering in this world? What do we do with the cruelty? What do we do with the inhumanity that we put upon one another on a daily basis? This was the heart of the Buddha's quest, for he had been sheltered in a life of the best of all possible worlds as a child. And it was only when he saw injury and illness and death that he thought, maybe I too have been lied to. And as many people are familiar with, the first truth that he arrives at is maybe suffering just is. Maybe that's just part of the deal of being on this rock that spins around a sun at 17,000 miles per hour. Thank goodness we don't feel that. Maybe peace is not about our intuitive response to pain, running away from it, hiding from it, delaying it, postponing it. What can I do to run away from this grief? What can I do to run away from this cruelty? Maybe it's about learning to abide. Maybe it's about learning to recognize that suffering is part of existence. It's not masochism. It's not saying, let's go seek out suffering. It's not saying, let us choose new illnesses to gather. It's saying, you will have an illness, right? You'll have a toothache. And that is just because you're a human. You got how many teeth? 32? Is that right? Sorry, had? How many teeth did you have? See, I would have fact-checked this before I was preaching. And one of them's going to hurt. And that's just the deal. And what we add on top of that is our experience of the pain, our interpretation of the pain. How dare I suffer? What can I do to make this go away? And so we're asked not to imagine a world without pain, not to imagine a world without cruelty. We're asked to practice being grounded through it, finding a peace within. Which brings me to John Calvin and the bone I've had to pick with this 16th century theologian, originally from France, famously settled in Geneva, and created what we might call Calvinism. You'd recognize it now through some kinds of American Presbyterian. Calvin believed that humans were depraved, that we were all born wretched. If Calvin wanted someone to blame, he could blame Augustine. So let's follow that thread for just a second, and then I'll get back to Calvin. The idea of original sin, the idea that we are of ourselves garbage, and only through Jesus' redemptive death and suffering can we be welcomed back into God's love, is really on Augustine. Paul gets close. He says that for as in Adam all die, even so in Christ shall all be made alive. But what he means there is we're all human, but through it, Paul was very, very much obsessed with the idea of resurrection. Anyways, Augustine takes that 3 steps further and says, because you are garbage, just like Adam was when he sinned first, and we inherit the sin of Adam, and only through Christ's suffering and redemption can you possibly be ungarbaged. There's a better theological term than that. And Calvin really leans into this, and this idea of our depravity. Recently, I had the great joy of sitting with a, I think, 2-day-old baby from our congregation. And I was sitting there and I turned to the parents and said, can you see in this child original sin? Can you see the depravity? And they just went like, oh God, because when you talk about it theologically, it's one thing. When you're holding a newborn, it's entirely different. Here you are, sin of Adam, right? Now, I chose Calvin to blame, not Augustine, because Calvin takes it further. He says, in fact, if you want to misread Paul, that's my opinion, Paul's letter to the Corinthians, not only are we depraved, but some God has predestined to be saved, and many God has predestined to go into the fires of hell. Predestination, the idea that some of us are worthy, and some of us are very much not worthy. Some of us deserve respect and dignity, and some of us do not. Some of us are human, and others not so much. And I mention this because if you were raised in that particular form of Calvinism, then you could find yourself tweeting, "If they don't accept my terms, I shall wipe their civilization off the map." Which he was, raised in a Presbyterian mindset. You see this in the current news about whether Reverend Sarah Trone Garrett is a reverend, whether this ordained Lutheran minister is a Christian. I don't know if you've caught this in the register this week, but this is the new attack as we start to see that it's a competitive race for the 3rd district, right? She's in 3rd? Okay, sorry. Still learning my Iowa maps. But this idea that her embrace of God's love from her evangelical Lutheran perspective includes too many people. It includes the people who are depraved. It includes the people who are predestined to hell. You would require a Calvinist approach to see other people as not really worthy of dignity. You get that? This is my beef with Calvin, is it sets up a culture of some of us are good and some of us are not. It's the Calvinists who came over that said the people currently living on this land are not worthy of us honoring the treaties we've sent with them, right? It's an us and a them applied to theology to the highest. And yet, finding peace is not about the conquest of us over them, right? It's not the conquest of people who believe in the worth and dignity of everyone over the evil people, the depraved people who believe in the depravity of humanity. You're hearing the irony, right? We are not going to find peace through our hatred of people. We are not going to find peace through our hatred of the bad people. Finding peace is an act of radical compassion. And I would argue it starts with oneself. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. Not conditionally, not when my candidate wins, not when the policies go my way. As a default setting, may I experience all things with peace. May I experience all things with well-being. May I experience all things with ease. It is a counterintuitive practice. And I would argue that half of my barrier to finding compassion with others is internal. Sort of skipping over the internal work and saying, I'm just going to try to love everyone else. I'll get to me later. But as a great philosopher once said, honey, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you ever going to love anyone else? Peace is the radical compassion, first to self and then to others. We're neither wise, nor pure, nor good. We do the best we know. We'll build our house and chop our wood and make our garden grow. May it be so.